Good morning. Welcome back to Coffee and Colorful Conversation. Happy Wednesday. On last week's coffee chat, I talked about the importance of having a strong mentor in our industry, how important it is to find someone that's just a little bit further ahead than you are to help pull you up and guide you along the way. I share with you often that my mentor that did that for me was Beth Minardi, and she still is. She always was so forward thinking and innovative and just all around, so much wisdom as far as how to stand out in a world of, so much competition, so much noise, everybody vying for the same things. It's easy to get locked into a routine and do what you've always done because it works. And you're afraid to try something different because you're afraid of disappointing your guest. You're afraid of disappointing yourself. You're afraid of looking bad, for lack of a better word. You don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing. So I talked about last week how every single class that I ever went to with Beth, there was always one thing that I walked away with that I could not wait to get back to the salon and try out on my guests and add to my menu of services. And I have to say, I was thinking about when I was getting ready to come on here this morning. I originally was going to talk about something totally different, but I wanted to share something so simple that has made such a huge impact on me as a colorist when it comes to brunettes. A lot of times when a brunette comes into the salon and they sit in your chair and they're showing their first grays and they're upset, they want to cover the gray, both you and the client tend to get in the state of mind of let's just get these grays covered, right? So you reach for whatever level that you think that they are naturally. You reach for that tube of permanent color and you put it on their hair and you cover their grays and everyone's happy. The client leaves looking just like she did when she came in, minus the grays. And this goes on for a while until, more gray, more gray, more gray. And then the client starts to get a little bit older. So me being in the industry for 34 years, I've watched my clients age. When you've done somebody's hair for that long, you see how much of a change in their skin tone, how much of a change in the percentage of gray. They start to get a little lackluster in their natural color. It starts to look a little bit flat and dull, and their hair starts to get more thin. All these things happen, and you watching may not even have had that happen to you yet because you might not be far enough along to watch someone age before your very eyes. But what ends up happening is our clients usually are at least 5 years or more older than us when we start out in the industry. So when I now am in my 50s, my clients are getting closer to 60. So they're going through some changes with their hair. If you follow me on the regular, I talk about these little crazy hairs at the temple become these estrogen hairs. These little hairs of mine have a life of their own. I feel like I have dude sideburns. They're these like fuzzy little, they're not long enough to be hair. And I just kind of push them back and tuck them behind my hair here so that other people can't see them. But when I'm on the beach, they frizz up and, you can see them getting all wiry and I hate them. And I'm like, where the heck did these come from? So I'm at that age now where I'm starting to notice all of the changes and I have more compassion for what my clients were going through when I didn't know what they were even talking about. So part of the wisdom that Beth has bestowed on me and others is that as a colorist, as you're growing in your profession, you want to constantly be leveling up in both your skills and your environment and your whole brand. She didn't just ever talk about just the hair color. It was always about you, the brand, you as the expert, you as people coming to seek you out to have their hair colored because they've heard that you're something special. There's something special about you. And I remember, studying with Beth for years before I ever got to actually go to her salon for a class. And from the time you walked into the building, it was on Madison Avenue in the highest rent district probably in the world other than San Francisco. You walked in and there was a gentleman in front of the elevator that was in that elevator guy suit, let you into the elevator, push the button for you. You went up a few flights to her salon, the doors opened, and it was this beautiful, everything was white and just everything looked like it was just done yesterday, like it was a brand new salon. And I know it wasn't. I know they were in business for probably 15 years at that point. And there's a beautiful, perfectly bloomed orchid on this long, beautiful table that greeted you as soon as you got off of the elevator. And the smell, as soon as you walked in, it didn't smell like a salon. And you know what I'm talking about. That smell of like the mix of perm and hairspray and nail polish. And you get assaulted with all of these smells as soon as you walk into your average salon. And it can't be helped sometimes, right? So they had laid this out where each room, wherever the chemicals were happening, was in a completely different area. And they probably had killer exhaust fans and they probably had custom scenting. There's a thing called custom scenting that hotels do where they can have a scent picked out where the whole entire space smells like a particular scent and masks any kind of offensive chemical odors. Walked up to the desk, was greeted with, a smile and a friendly face. And the person stepped around the desk and came up and handed me a robe right to me, like not across the desk. Those little details, the robe itself was the softest, nicest robe. It didn't have like stray hairs from another client caught in the Velcro, like I'm sure you've seen in the salon, or stains on it from a prior color service, or a little hole in the neck. Like there was none of that. It was absolute perfection from beginning to end. When I sat and waited to be brought into the class, someone came over and said, "Can I make you a cappuccino? Can I offer you any kind of other beverage?" And they had multiple choices. Now I know it's COVID right now and we can't really do that, but moving forward, it's not just about the hair. It really never was. Women and men are coming to us for an experience. They want to feel better than they did when they walked in the door. And they want to feel better and look better when they leave. So when it comes to brunettes, back to the brunette, she comes in, you cover her gray, everybody's happy. It's good. It's just not great. And then what happens is your brunette, when you're using permanent color, I talk about this all the time, both in my book and in my membership. Permanent color will always fade warm. No matter what shade you choose in your arsenal, it's always going to fade warm. Life happens. Sun happens. There's a convertible ride. There's a trip to the beach. There's a vacation with saltwater beach time and jacuzzi time and the chemicals in the jacuzzi. There's all kinds of things going on. And that brunette is going to come back to you looking very different than when she left your chair. And our knee-jerk reaction when that happens is, oh my goodness, let's just get rid of all this. And one of my favorite classes that I went to with Beth, she chose to look at it completely differently. She stepped back and looked at that horrible fading that we all see that has that not quite blorange, but not quite brown. It's this in-between. I don't even have a name for it. It's just like really faded, brassy, light brown on a deep brown base from where they started with their gray coverage. And she stepped back at this class and she said, most of you will automatically think, let's just glaze all this away. And some of you may think, let's glaze it a little bit lighter than her base color to give her a little bit of a sun-kissed look. And that's okay. That's pretty. And it's healthy and it's shiny and it's okay. But what about if we looked at it a step further and we took that brassiness and we thank the brassiness for being that much lighter than her base, that we don't have to put any kind of bleach or harsh chemicals on there in order to get a really interesting dimensional brunette. And I was like, wow, I never, ever would have thought of that. It's just one of those things that's staring you right in the eye. It's right there, but we're always in such a hurry because we book ourselves so close together that we're like, oh my gosh, I have to go. I have to get on to the next client. That you apply her root retouch, you reach for your liquid demi, either Shades EQ Gloss or Joico Lumi Shine or Gold Wall Colorants or some kind of liquid demi acidic color to just then glaze away all that brassiness. Boom, done. Everything's done in 30 minutes. Under the sink, she's on her way. But in that same 30 minutes, you can do this. So I'm going to share some pictures with you of the difference in looking at it differently. And I hope this goes well because I'm not good at this. I had to use a different platform. So give me a second. I'm going to share, hopefully, my photo. So this is how she comes back. She went to Puerto Rico. She got away from the children. She had fun with her husband. Hopefully she's not having another child when she comes back. Hopefully she didn't have too much fun. And she comes in looking like this. And she's like, oh, make my gray go away. That's all she says. Because to her, she doesn't even see how faded and brassy that those ends got. And look how far down that is. It's probably some old highlights that were covered up with a glaze, and then the sun and shampoo and life, that all lifted up. And now she's got that brunette all the way, ring around the rosy. This is probably what most of you are looking at during COVID. People are coming back looking like this because it's been so long since their last visit. So again, we could put her root retouch on. I use a level 6 on her. So level 6 gray coverage, put her root retouch on during the last 10 minutes, glaze down that zone 2 and 3, make it match the brunette that's already there, and send her on her way. Super shiny, glossy, lovely. So let's see instead what Beth shared was an option that I was blown away by. Oops, hang on. Make that smaller. Instead, we gave her this. So yes, she got a haircut, so it looks dramatically different, but it was only this part of her hair. All that craziness was in this mid zone. And look at how beautiful those highlights are. They're like a milk chocolate on a chocolate base. So brunettes don't have to be monochromatic, all one color. I know the Kardashians started that whole thing where everybody wanted to be, Elvira black, and it was a trend. Everybody wanted to be Kim Kardashian. They thought if they made their hair black, they were going to have her money and her fame and her perks. But most women can't carry that dark of a color. For me as a colorist, I often share that I never, in 34 years of doing color, I have never used anything darker than a level 4 permanent color, ever. Corrective situations, gray coverage, no matter what. And my darkest of dark clients have, Indian descent that are, their hair looks like black coal, and it's still only a level 4. Because hair color has a lot of deposit and a lot of depth. And unless you really want to look like the Addams Family or Elvira or Cruella DeVille's dark hair, like that really super dark charcoal, no light going through it whatsoever, there's really not a need to go that dark. So with doing a simple technique, this look took me from that before picture to the after. There was 8 foils put in her hair. 8 foils during her retouch created this from that. And I was able to add on to her ticket. She was beyond thrilled because what happens is when the client gets that brassiness and that lightness, they don't even see the brassiness. They love the lightness. They love that their hair looks different on the ends. They think that in their mind, they're like, ooh, I look like one of those Victoria's Secret models. I have sun-kissed hair. She doesn't realize that unless her hair was curled, she had that ring around a rosy of all that depth and then just orangey light ends. So she was thrilled because she still got to hang on to that vacation hair, but I didn't get lazy and do the automatic, let's just dump something all over and make it all one color. So step away and just look at things a little bit differently and see how you can add something interesting. If she were to go to another salon, if she were to go on vacation and decide to have her color done in another state by another colorist, I guarantee they're not going to do this technique because they just haven't thought of it. They're going to put the roots on, set the timer, last 15 minutes, they're going to glaze through the lightness, or even worse, they're going to be old school and they're going to squirt her ends with water and they're going to add whatever's left in the bottle of permanent color And they're going to pull that all through the mids and ends and leave that permanent color on her ends for 15 minutes using unnecessary alkalinity and blowing up the cuticle for no reason, because all you needed was a little bit of deposit. So it's the little things that make the big difference. And I was able to see things differently because I had that strong mentor. And that was important to me, to always have inspiration and new ways of looking at things. You know, some people, it's a magazine. You get that American Salon, that Modern Salon, and you go through it, you know, from beginning to end, and you look at the pictures and you're so inspired. But I don't know about you, those magazines are amazing. But to me, it never inspired me for a behind the chair look. It was more, if I ever decide to step out, really step out of my comfort zone and enter the NAHA competition for avant-garde hair. That's what's in the magazines, you know, turning hair. I talked to Oscar, who's a friend, who's a business coach. I interviewed him on my podcast, and we were talking about his career in hair. I didn't realize that he was a competition stylist. I've always known him as Oscar, the business guy. He was with Inspiring Champions, and he's into team building and growing your book and all those things. But starting out, he was a competition stylist, and he did really well in these competitions. And he turned the client's hair into a woven hat. I'm sure you've seen those in books and magazines from back in the early 80s when competition hair was a big thing. So that's really interesting and cool that hair could be turned into a woven, you know, hat. But your client's not going to come in on a Tuesday at 4:00 and say, can you weave my hair into a hat? Can you braid my hair and make it look like a big hat? You know, where would she wear that on a Tuesday? So there's inspiration for, you know, really cool things that hair can do if you really want it to. But there's inspiration for what can I do as a professional colorist to change the lives of my clients in such a small way for not a big investment and not a whole lot of time. You know, there's all these techniques right now that, you know, require you have your silver gray transitions that are taking 7-8 hours. And there's a place for that, but not every stylist can commit to 7-8 hours behind the chair. This technique didn't take any longer than her regular root retouch, because I don't squeeze clients in. So if she's my 11 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, I'm applying her root color, right? And while her root color is on, she has to sit there and process 30 to 35 minutes to let that gray process. So why not take part of that 35 minutes to go in and do this technique? It took me maybe 8 minutes to put in these 8 foils. And then what I was going to do the lazy way, I had to do anyway with glazing. So that would have been in that service anyway. So the only additional work that happened in this beautiful technique was the 8 minutes of 8 foils. What is the difference? Before, I could only charge her for a root retouch and a glaze at the ends. And please, if you're watching, tell me that you're charging extra for glazing the ends. Please tell me that, because for the first probably 14 years of my career, I was not charging extra for glazing the ends, and shame on me when I think about the income that I lost. And when I think about the price of a bottle of liquid acidic demi right now is like $8 or $9. So just the product cost alone should have been passed on to the client. So that was additional 8 minutes. Now I can charge her for this special technique. As soon as the client sees the foils coming out, as soon as she sees that dimensional, beautiful, you know, awesome look at the end that's bespoke to her and not cookie cutter on every client walking out of the salon looking like Kim Kardashian, she walked out with a little bounce in her step and flipping her hair, because she knows she has these beautiful dimensional highlights. So that's an upcharge. So now I have a root retouch, a glazing of the ends, and a halo foil. Whatever my halo foil charge is now on top of that root retouch. And she was thrilled, didn't question it, didn't say, oh, no, not today. She's got 5 kids. This gorgeous, young, beautiful girl has 5 kids. So she felt special. She felt special that I took that extra time while she's sipping on her cappuccino in a mug a beautiful, this isn't it, but a white, beautiful branded to the salon, matches the salon mug, not a styrofoam cup with powdered creamer and, sugar in the diner container, the big thing with the hole in it. It's all about branding, guys. If you want to be that six-figure colorist, you cannot say, oh, let me go mix up your color and slap and get it on you. Let's get this on you quick. Let's get your color on so you can sit and cook. It's your verbiage. It's how you say things that makes the biggest difference and how you present things. If you give a client a snack and I'm trying to think of what I've been given at salons. It's been quite interesting. We bought a house recently and we were at settlement, and settlement's stressful. You're signing your life away. You're signing these papers. You don't even know what you're signing because you don't have time to read them. And it's like a stack this thick, and it's legal jargon that you're like, oh my gosh, I could be giving this house away to somebody and just keep signing. And someone who's like the office assistant came in and said, can I make you a cup of coffee? And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love that. And it ended up being my favorite Nespresso machine that they had. It wasn't just coffee out of a percolated pot in a styrofoam cup with the, powdered creamer. It was a beautiful, really hot, delicious, amazing cup of coffee. Suddenly, I'm not even caring that I'm signing my life away for thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm just like, oh, where do I sign next? And then we walked out of the office, and the office was filled with apple pies. There was more apple pies than I've ever seen in my life. It was right before Thanksgiving. So I was like, whoa, what's going on? What's with the pies? And they were like, oh, would you like one? I'm like, of course I want one. So we had an apple pie to take home to our new house that had no furniture, no nothing in the refrigerator. Now we had this beautiful apple pie that we would remember that we got that at settlement. And we're going to remember our realtor that got us there. We're going to remember the guy that we signed all the papers with. And we're going to remember the assistant who brought us that coffee. So who do you think we're going to call the next time somebody comes to visit us and says, oh my gosh, we're moving here. We love it here. Who do you recommend as a realtor? We're going to recommend Nick because it was a great experience all the way through. Anyone can walk you through a house. Anyone can show up, open the door, stand there, roll their eyes and let you walk around and be like, what do you think? Okay, let me move on to the next. But no, it was important to us to have a relationship with the person that was going to make a nice big fat commission from us. And he always went above and beyond. This house that I'm in right now came up when he was getting married. He called us on his wedding day and said, do you need me to do anything? And we were like, dude, get married. Like, it's okay. But it was the difference. And that's why we'd recommend him. So you want to be that stylist, that colorist. And I'm not saying the one that squeezes everybody in, lets clients walk all over them, comes in early, stays late. I regret all of those things, every single one of those things. I had my hair done yesterday, and the stylist and I were chit-chatting. We had a great connection. We are so much alike, it's ridiculous. She's a much more beautiful, younger version of me, but we made a connection right away. And every single thing about our career was completely parallel. And she told me a story about when she moved to Florida, she had to get extra hours because she moved from New York, and the hours for New York license was much less than Florida. So she had to go back after owning a salon, and it's ridiculous, but she had to. And she said that her teacher was talking about putting 40 volume with powdered lightener on scalp and putting it under heat. The teacher was teaching a student that. And she was like, I could not say anything. So she said she piped up and said, that's really not a good idea. The developer is not the strength of the lift. It's the product. You don't need that much strength. It's the oxygen, blah, blah, blah. And the teacher got embarrassed and was like, oh, she made her look bad. But that's what's happening. Beauty school is a little bit behind with, what's true and what's not. And then these things are being carried into people's careers. So fast forward after that whole thing, the teacher said, wow, you really know what you're doing. Why don't you teach a class for us? And the stylist said, I'm more than happy to teach a class for you, but I paid you to come here to school and I charge when I educate. So I'm more than happy to teach, but I would have to charge you. And I was like, girl, you are like light years ahead of me in your boundaries, because I would be so excited that they asked me to share, and I would want to just save everyone in the beauty school from learning all these things and then having to unlearn them, that I'd be like, oh my gosh, I would like to teach the rest of the semester for free and pay you to be here because that's who I am. And I'm like, God, when I look back at all of the things, and I don't regret all of it because I'm a giver, like I just am a giver by nature, but you do have to have pride in what you do and what value you bring and know your worth and not be afraid to say, I'm not saying no. I'm saying, yes, I would love to, but I should be compensated because I paid to be here and now you're asking me to teach the class. So I just thought that was amazing that, she has that. Yes, Hope said, break the cycle of insanity. Yes. And I'm so proud of my colorists at my salon because they see what I did for people and like how it did not get me gratitude in any way. It just became expected. It's the more you give, the more people expect. And I have found that a lot in my career that, I'm an overgiver. So I keep overgiving. And then there's no gratitude. It's like, oh, well, she's just always going to save us. She's always going to do this. So my colorists now have much better boundaries. They say no when they want to say no. And, they don't make up excuses or feel like they have to create a story. How many times have you been asked to do something and you say, oh my gosh, I would totally love to, but my son has a soccer game that day and my mom, I have to drive her to like you come up with this story where there's no reason for the story. You're a grown ass adult and you can just say, I'm sorry, no, that doesn't work for me. And you don't owe anyone an explanation at all. It's just, no, I'm sorry. Or no, not even I'm sorry. See how that's in nature for me to say, no, I'm sorry. For me to say, no, that does not work for me. Thanks for asking. That doesn't work for me. That's it. I remember I had to let go of an employee and it was so hard in the beginning. And then it became way too easy because I realized that the people that had to go were the bad apple and they were spoiling the whole bunch for sure. The culture was completely ruined by the one bad apple. And I remember talking to my therapist, who I was much needed when I had 15 employees in 1,200 square feet. And I said, it just is so, so difficult to have someone's career be responsible. See how I'm taking it on again? Feeling like, oh my gosh, if I let them go, they're so busy, they're making a great living, but they have such a bad attitude. And I feel like I need to keep them and I need to help them. And she's like, you can't change another person. You can only change you and you can only model better behavior, but you can't make her become like you. It's never going to happen. And if she's ruining your culture, she needs to go. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I even say? This is so hard. People are going to think I'm crazy. She brought in like $200,000 a year. She was a 6-figure colorist and she was busy all the time. But she was like so bad for the culture. And the therapist said, you're going to bring her into your office. You're going to say, can I talk to you at the end of the night tonight? I need to chat with you. And then when she comes into your office, you're going to say, this is no longer working for me. Today's your last day. I'm letting you go. And she said, stop right there. Don't tell a story. Don't make excuses. Don't elaborate. Just say, this is no longer working for me. And I'm afraid this is your last day. I need to let you go and just end it. And I did it. And I was like trying not to keep talking out of nervousness. And she said, oh, okay. I kind of saw it coming. And she walked away and that was the end of it. And I was like, I think I lost sleep for probably 3 weeks building up to that moment. And it's actually a really funny story. And then I'll stop because I'm going long as usual. So I was so proud of myself that I did that. And one of our girls was leaving by choice. She was not getting let go. And everybody was taking her out that night as her goodbye dinner. And I did the whole thing. And then she's like, so are you coming tonight? Like acting like she would be okay with me coming when, she wouldn't be. And I was like, no, I think it's better that I don't. And she did go out with them. And I like walked down the steps, and it was like a movie where you're like walking off into the sunset. Like, I broke up with the boyfriend. I feel so good. And I felt so relieved, but I was kind of shaky because it was a big deal. And I walked down the steps and I walked outside, and I go out to where I think my car is parked and realize that my car was in the shop getting work done, and my husband dropped me off. So I'm outside of the salon. I have no car, and I just had this dramatic exit. I'm like, I can't go back in there and say I don't have a car. So I went around the corner and called my husband for my cell phone. I'm like, you have to pick me up in the back alley. I just had this big dramatic exit when I let this girl go, and I can't go back inside. They're all in there probably talking about it, and I have to leave, but I have no car. And he was dying. He's like, oh my God, leave it to you. So he put my son in the car, and they pull up, and my son's like, what's going on? Why are you in the alley? He's asking a million questions. I'm like, because your mother is insane. That's why. But the moral of the story is, when you think it's going to be this big, gigantic thing and emotions are going to be flying high, she didn't want to be there. She wouldn't behave the way that she did if she wanted to be part of that culture. It was almost like she was poking at me like kids poke at their mom when they want their attention. She wanted to be let go. She wanted to be put out of her misery. She didn't like being there. She didn't fit in. And she knew she was staying for the money, and I was keeping her for the money. And shame on both of us. I look back and I'm like, it tortured my soul. Yes, I made the money, but I was miserable. She was a different person inside and outside of work. So she had to live this split personality life that had to be exhausting. She dressed differently. She wore her makeup differently. She behaved differently because she was behaving how she thought I wanted her to behave. And she did a great job. She was a great actress. She had those high ticket clients that, were spending a lot of money, and they loved her. But if they saw her out on a weekend, they wouldn't even have recognized her. She was that different. And that's not fair to her or to us that she had to live that double life. So you need to be in the environment that you feel the most comfortable in and be your best self and level up and look at your brunettes differently. Add those little extra touches. I don't want to hear, oh, my salon won't pay for another coffee machine. An espresso machine is like $150 now. Buy your own. Have a little thing of milk in the refrigerator. Buy your own damn Nespresso machine and make your own lattes for your clients. It will be the best $150 you ever spend. You'll get it back on your first 2 clients, gratuities. They'll be so excited that you have this amazing coffee that they'll be making their next appointment before they even leave, just for the coffee, not even for the hair or the conversation. So thanks for listening. As always, I hope that I see some of you on here have already bought your tickets to my evening with Beth. That's how I started out today, talking about what a great mentor she has been to me. And I know it's going to be a really fun night. Tickets are still available. We're keeping it fairly small, so there will be a cutoff. But if you haven't gotten your ticket yet, they're only $37 for an evening with the one and only Beth Minardi, award-winning colorist, is going to share with you all those special things that are going to make you stand out among your competition. And we're just going to have an evening of connection. Katie said, can't wait. Katie, I saw you bought your ticket. I can't wait to see you there as well. So thank you so much. And I hope to see you again next week for some coffee and some conversation. Have a great week. Take care.